Hello everyone, this is Charlotte and it's a podcast called Chatting in Cars, where I talk about topics on rant and travel to work, possibly offending people as I rant, but bear in mind these are just that shower thoughts. These are not gospel. You don't have to believe me, you don't have to side with me. I'm not asking you to. I'm just expanding the psyche of humanity by suggesting things, maybe. I don't know, man. You don't have to go with my shit. I know I'm full of shit. Come on. What is it they say about, sign of his intelligence is to entertain a thought without accepting it. Someone said that. I think it was like Socrates or something like that, So just, man, span your consciousness for a little bit. Relax, man. Unclench. Some people get offended. I'm glad I didn't allow comments. Just have a go, man. So there's a disclaimer at the start of this podcast because, oh, hello, turtle portal. I do talk about sensitive topics. These are just shower thoughts. You can relax, okay? It's not real. I mean, real is perception based anyway, so calm down. And I do swear a lot. I do swear because I enjoy it, and it is a part of expression. It's the human condition expression. In some ways, it's an art form, so yeah, go with it, man. Fucking relax, dude. What the fuck? I'm offended. Good? Because that means you're thinking, I guess. It's like, am I gonna change? Probably not. So just, it's Thursday, man. I got paid today, so I'm stoked. So I'm not gonna be a grumpy bum about stuff. Whoop, bad intersection. So the topic for today is stress. Everybody gets stressed. Even autistic people like me get stressed. And it's fine. I don't cope with it well. Well, I do, but I don't. I do because I don't stop. I do cope with it well because it doesn't stop me, stress. I don't cope with the symptoms of it well because my body still breaks down. And I live in a fairly stressful environment where my workplace is the stressful environment. I come home and everything's sort of desensitized anyway, so I don't have a problem at home like I did growing up. My apartment itself, even though it's like small, it's only a one-bedroom apartment. It's a sensory safe zone. Everything's sort of dimly lit. There's a lot of textures there that are good for me. There's no loud noises. Sorry, my starter's kicking in something fierce. There's no loud noises. It's a pretty chill environment. I know I can go there and just de-stress. There's no real demands on me anyway, because I don't have people living with me that I need to look after or anything like that. Unlike when I was married, or dating. So it's pretty chill, and I have no real problems coming in from work and just defrazzling. But a large chunk of my mental condition is stress-based. It is a effect of long-term stress on the brain. I already had a predisposition for ASD, and I have been to a psych. I had to go to a psych when I was about 33 onwards for a bit. Because I don't know if you listened to the other podcast, but I went through a slight mental episode, because I got divorced and all that extra shit. Now, if you want to listen to the other podcast, that's fine. I'm not going to rant on about that shit now today, hopefully. There might be hints of it, but I do feel it's a very cyclic conversation, so it's a lot of the same shit just cycling over again. I feel like I'm talking to my dead granddad. He used to do things in cycles a lot, the same conversation over and over again. Maybe it's an age thing, but you deal with stress in different ways. My body, for example, doesn't deal with it well. My immune system flares up and I get, oh my god, why are they like this? One is literally standing in the road and the other just ran across it. What is it? Peak traffic time. Anyway, stress. My body doesn't cope with it. You'll see me get eczema from chin to neck. I get cold sores because I picked them up when I was 7. Apparently it's one of those childhood things you can get. Weirdly, grossly. And you'll see me get cuts on my lip and stuff like that. I look drawn in and a bit tight, and you can tell I'm haggard. So you can tell when I'm heavily stressed, although my mind isn't stressed. I might be a bit grumpier than usual. My tics might kick in where I can't control my filter as well as I normally would do. You can tell when I'm tired. I've only in my life, I think, had a meltdown, like an autistic meltdown, maybe 3 times. It's not an ongoing huge thing. Like you'll hear about autistic people having these huge fucking meltdowns when they throw themselves on the floor and stuff like that. It's never really occurred to me. Probably because it's a conditioned response not to. I remember having one when I was a kid about some project I had to do on New Zealand, and I didn't know any information. I couldn't grasp that maybe I could research it with a book or something like that, because we didn't have the internet at that age. That's how old I am. So I remember losing it in front of my mum, and she said, fucking deal with it, and walked off. I'm going, okay, so the meltdowns do nothing. They don't help. The second time I remember having one over having to buy a dress for my granddad's marriage to my granddad Fred's marriage to his stepwife. And I was quite a chunky 12-year-old, 15-year-old, I think it was 12 actually. Because, you know, if you listen to the other podcasts, you'll know I used to steal food to supplement whatever I was given at this point. And it wasn't just a case of I'm greedy, it was a case of they weren't feeding us properly. So I got quite good at that, and I was quite round, and I was short, so, you know, anyone who's round and short knows what it's like to go dress shopping, and it's fucking horrible and traumatic. And I remember in the car crying my heart out because I couldn't find a dress that looked alright. And it was my own doing as well. I'm not going to play the victim on that, but at the 12-year-old mindset I was at the time, I didn't understand. I couldn't make the connections that what I was doing, even though it was a band-aid solution to essentially neglect, was a bad thing, so that I couldn't have like a decent looking dress. It was a weird not being able to make mental ends meet kind of thing, because you're 12, man. Your brain's not there. So I'd done this thing to survive, and the result, which I had done, had resulted in a different type of problem, so I just couldn't make the connections. So that caused a sort of semi-meltdown, and it was the only time my mum saw me really fucking wail without, you know, some kind of interaction where she'd hit me or something. So I think that threw her off guard a bit. And I had my future step grandma in the passenger seat. So she was looking at me like, the fuck is this? And you know, it's horrible to see a kid cry and carry on like that, to be honest, because you're like, there's got to be some intense pain going on there. For me, I don't know if it was just an exaggerated. It's a heartbreak. It felt like a heartbreak at the time. I do remember what it felt like, because I had low self-esteem at the time anyway, and to be put through this experience where I had to find a fucking dress, and it seems menial now because I've desensitized myself to that kind of shit now, I guess. But it is absolutely heartbreaking. I had a meltdown, and my mum didn't know what to do. So what did she do instead? In the following weeks and days, she put me on the what is that cabbage soup thing diet? And then there was a grapefruit diet thing. So I became a new plaything in that regard for her to test out these diet things, rather than help me understand my mental condition or state. It was a case of, how can I fix this quick so she shuts up? Not helpful, not supportive really, but then again, that was what we're working with, so what can you do with that? It was a weird parenting thing. I can tell you now, I hate salted silver beet, boiled silver beet. There are a lot of foods I just don't like now because of that kind of shit. But, you know, and that could have also fed into me developing anorexia at a later date, because I felt I wasn't good enough because I wasn't thin enough. So, you know, it's when you got autism, it's a series of comorbidities which feed on each other, which just snowball into these greater problems. So that led eventually to PTS, OCD. I had depression when I left my ex-husband, although I didn't recognize I had depression. But I was that highly stressed and highly strung that I wasn't showing any of the physical, like, meltdown symptoms when I was with him, because I had subdued it that much. I'd internalized the stress. I wasn't happy, but I was able to hide it well, which is not good. So it's been a tricky situation trying to deal with stress from that particular perspective. Like, anyone who doesn't have something like ASD would have a different experience, maybe. I don't know. Maybe they'll be able to cope with it better. It was a weird experience. There are highlights as well, though. There are good notes about having ASD. because it hasn't physically stopped me. Like some people who are not autistic may may suffer from burnout a lot quicker, but because we don't, or I don't, recognize the signs to slow down and stop, I'll just burn through it. It's like, you got burnout. It's like, give me a coffee, we're going. The natural thing, the behaviorally, biological, natural thing would be to stop and assess and to have that burnout. But because my brain just doesn't recognize the symptoms of it, the stress, that we just tend to ignore the whole situation and keep going, and that lends itself to the meltdowns. Or in my case, where I had like PTS attacks, physical seizing up on the floor, which is not nice either. I've done that about 3 times as well. It's post-divorce, actually. I never did it when I was married, so that's weird. But it just seems to have accumulated in that era, post highly stressful areas of my life, where these symptoms, once you've had a chance to actually relax and let them out, that they start to go like really obvious, and it is really prominent in your day. Like I didn't have my tremor pre-divorce, for example. I never recognized it. It's only afterwards that I started getting like when I'm about to have my PTS attack, so there's a tremor in my hand, my eye blinks rapidly, my stutter has become more prominent as well, my stammer has become more prominent, because I just didn't talk that much and I didn't let it out. So I became more myself. I didn't realize I had these bits in me when I was attached to my ex-husband, who would sort of like, you'd hide that stuff for some reason, masking. I was hiding it a lot just to fit in and make things work. But with my PTS attacks, you got like I like a tremor in my right hand, sometimes my left, sometimes both. If it spreads to both, then I know the next thing that's going to happen is my breathing's going to fuck up. I can't take deep breaths. Everything sort of sits in the top of your lungs, so it's like that. I can't get down there to breathe. My breathing seizes up altogether, which is not good. My muscles seize up together. So if you're sitting there doing an overhead, like I'm doing 37.5 overheads at the moment, can you imagine you get it all the way up and then it's frozen, you're like, help me. But of course you can't actually say help me, because someone come grab this way, because you've seized up all your oxygen and you can't breathe. So it's a pain in the ass. So you try and avoid the actual getting to the point where you might hit that peak of I need help. So you'll see me like stop mid-set if it gets too much from my brain. I remember having the fish part, the seizing up part on the floor a bit. I had when I was in separation. I remember twice. It was just it's a convulsion. It's a kind of case of, and the more you try and dampen it down, the worse it gets, because you're trying to tighten your muscles, get that thing down, and it's just making it worse. And you're like, it's not pretty. I don't want to. I nearly did it on the mat one time in the gym, because I was in the stretching part of my training. And the whole point of me going to the gym is to elevate and de-elevate, because I want to go through cycles of putting myself through a stressor and then removing the stressor to try and calm the system, so I can sort of Pavlovian response myself into calming down. If it goes straight from 0 to 60 at work or something like that, 0 to 60, that's a lot, in seconds, then I want to be able to like hair trigger that back to a normal rate. So that's what the de-escalation's for, because my body should be conditioned to bring it back down immediately is what I want. And it does work over time. Like I was really raw when I separated, because I was all up in the air mentally. And a lot of that was anger, and a lot of it was trauma and dealing with the unknown and change and all that kind of shit. So everything was elevated, escalated. So I brought that down a bit. I'm a lot calmer now, and I've done a lot of things to help, like even supplement wise as well, to try and de-escalate situations where I might potentially have a seize up on the floor, which is helpful, because I don't want to do it in front of my kids at work. They'll be like, go call the head, go to the office, go get the deputy, we're going to need help here. But those symptoms didn't really show up because I was masking so hard and internalizing so much that it just didn't show up until I had the chance to relax and actually acknowledge that the stresses existed. That there was a lot of sequencing of events which caused a snowball effect of horrible experiences and reactions. I'm not saying play the victim. I'm saying shit happens in life and we have to adapt, don't we? Which is sad because some people want that acknowledge this is a bad thing that's happened to me and feel sorry for me kind of way. And I'm saying it's not bad to acknowledge that this bad stuff has happened to you. I'm just saying don't play on it to garner other people's attention. Which in itself I'm kind of doing now with these podcasts, but I'm not looking for attention. I'm just trying to talk through the events and try and understand them a bit better. I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I don't feel sorry for me, so I don't know why you would. But you know, it's a lot of weird shit that happens. So I'm trying to sort out the sort of multifacets of the events that happened. Don't feel sorry for me. I don't think it would help if you did feel sorry for me. Actually, I've done so well progressing through them without people feeling sorry for me. So it's odd to me to get that kind of sympathy. But the stress is there, and if you can discuss it and how it affected you and share information on how you treated it or how you dealt with it, I think that's the more important component about it. I don't want to, say this is a bad thing to happen and you feel sorry for me. I'm not going to talk about it any further. That's what I hated growing up. It's like if something bad happened to you growing up, you weren't allowed to talk about it. That's what pisses me off. I think that's what sort of sent me on this trajectory. If you're stressed, you're not allowed to admit that you're stressed because it shows a sign of weakness. It's not a weakness. Although you're still expected to overload yourself and keep trudging on, even though it's hurting you and stuff like that. So that bugs me. So I don't have, I've done that podcast on victim mentality, which some people didn't like. I'm not going there. It's too funny to address. For me, it's funny and ironic, but okay. But anyway, ironic. But it's I'm not doing it to garner support. I'm doing it to discuss a topic which hopefully you can understand if you've been in that situation. No amount of feeling sorry for me, for example, right now would fix any of the previous trauma I've got. It doesn't work that way. It's already happened. It's done. The damage is there. I'm working my way through fixing the damage. I don't need an ice cream and a pat on the back and say, aren't you brave? I don't need that. I need solutions. I need information. I have to find out ways of fixing this myself, because the only person that really can fix your stress at levels are you. You do have some people who say that just hanging out with other people and being able to talk to other people is a helpful thing. I'm not that kind of person. I'm not a social person, so anytime I try and fix my problems, I usually isolate, to be honest, because I want to focus on the problem itself. I find that involving other people, even if it's just friends, it's different when you go to a psych, because they know what they're doing. That's their job. They'll pick out all the bits that don't make sense and they'll make you look at it yourself. And there's a lot of things I missed just from self-analysis, where someone else saying this is causing a problem and identifying it for me, locating it for me and discussing it with me actually showed that I missed some stuff or I didn't gauge it right. And of course we've got our own bias account, but when it comes to dealing with stress I tend to isolate, and I don't know if that's healthy. It might be healthy because it means that you're not affecting other people, you're not dragging other people down, and that's a trauma response in itself. But if I isolate, I also tend to I can focus on this one thing without worrying about everyone else and what they're going to do and what's going on with, their lives, which sounds selfish really, but it's like I don't care about anyone else, I'm looking at me. But in a sense it's a form of self-care. You've got to isolate in order to grasp what's actually going on without all the white noise around you, distracting you from looking at what's going on that's making you sick or stressing you out, or I did a podcast in the green list called The Value of Being Alone, the value of aloneness or something like that. And it just discusses isolation and how valuable it is to just hear yourself. It's a form of meditation in itself, really, because you're not seeking others' input, you're actually looking at you for you, which is valuable. Nobody wants to look at themselves because it could be harmful or perceived harmful. It could be painful. But if you don't look at the aspects of yourself which are enabling and accepting these forms of stress, then you're probably not going to be able to fix them because you're just denying that they exist altogether. And if you don't do that, if you can't isolate the problem, even if it means that you have to isolate yourself for a while, not forever. Yeah, I call it going stutter. Stutter. It's hermit mode in tarot terms. You go hermit mode. It's hermit mode. Stop with the stutter. But the whole point of hermit mode is to go inside and check if your values align with what you're doing on the outside. And it's, it's the chance for you to look at yourself. Am I happy with what I am? Am I happy with where I'm going? Is this doing anything for me? And you need to do that in terms of stress, because sometimes we sit in these situations where we've overloaded ourselves stressfully. Maybe it's a job, maybe it's a house, maybe it's a family, maybe it's, just trying to fit in and follow hobbies of other people that are quite bad for you if you need to, because you feel that you need to do these things in order to belong to this particular group, and somehow you've attributed value to that particular group, for example. So you do the things. But it's causing stress, and so hermit mode gives you the chance to assess whether it's worth hanging around with this group, following on with this relationship, sitting in this job if you're not happy. It's looking at your life and saying, this amount of stress is not worth the fallout I'm getting, or is worth the fallout I'm getting. Ooh, hello. Ooh. Ooh. I hate when they do that. I know they're supposed to do it to get to the front of the line at the traffic because it's a safety issue, but at the same time you're sitting there going, how do you not get knocked off course? There's another one. No, he's going down the lane. Whee! Whee! I wish I got my license. I started getting it, but I didn't, because again I had a PTS attack and an anxiety attacks on the bike, and I was worried about falling off. But I will go back hopefully and finish getting my license. I don't know. When I'm ready. Again, that's a stressor. But that was something that I was really excited about doing, and I got all the way up to 5th gear. I did 50 in 5th gear, and it's a different feeling from driving a car, riding a bike. Completely different. It feels a lot more open and scary. But 50 in a car, kilometers this is, 50 in a car is nothing compared to 50 on a bike. And I was freaking out because not only was I doing 50, I was trying to learn the tacit knowledge of riding a bike, and it's different from a car again. So that created a stressful environment. And even though I was intensely excited about getting this fucking bike license, because I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go get a decent bike, it's gonna be awesome, I'm just gonna cruise down the street and it's gonna be awesome, I'm gonna have fun. The excitement and the value I placed on the practice of getting my license actually became a stressor, and it was an overloading stressor as well. So I had to cut it short for a bit, and I probably will go back eventually when I calm down a bit. This was like 2 years ago now, I think, or so, maybe 3. So I still feel that I would be stressed getting that bike, but I'm willing to go back, and eventually I will go back. And it might take a bit longer because I do still value this idea of getting my bike. I want my bike. It's like, I want a bike. But it's I'm not stressing myself out excessively over this idea. I mean, I will say you should push yourself to achieve your goals, but not to the point where it's detrimental to your health. And if I'm going to cause an accident, because I was really worried about seizing up on the bike, because I was having the panic attacks and everything. At 50, I know it seems outlandish, but I was stressing out about this thing, and I'm sitting there going, if I seize up and I do something wrong and something goes wrong, I'm going to have an accident, I'm going to kill myself or someone else, it can't be good for me. So I need to find a way to de-stress a bit more before I try this, attempt this jump again, which is fine. You can always come back to it. I just put a pause on it. I put it in the hangman position, and I'll come back to that. So it's no problem with coming back to it, but some things that are stressful are not worth coming back to. Some things you need to leave in entirety, just because they lose sense of value and they become damaging to your health. Like, dare I say it, my marriage. I keep going back to that. I've not done much with my life. But if you're sitting in a situation like that where you've lost all sense of self and it's fucking up your internal alignment, your morals don't match, It's affecting your health. You've lost your sense of identity. You're just floating through this miasma of someone else's wishes and demands. And maybe they're verbally abusive. My ex-husband wasn't that verbally abusive. He was covertly selfish and abusive that way, because you never got a chance to voice what you wanted to do. It was always what he wanted to do. Minor things like that, minor to me, but the major thing that broke it was I need an open relationship, or we're breaking up shit. And I said, no, we're breaking up. So I called the shot on that one. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. But if it's got to the point where some people are horrible when they're married to people. I'm sitting there thinking, I'm looking at these couples, my parents are insanely still together after 30 odd years or something like that. But they're verbally abusive to each other, and not physically, but verbally. And I'm sitting there going, how can this create an environment where you guys actually still love each other? Because it's just outright nastiness at times. And you sit there and think, how can you sit in this? And it's a case of they sat in it long enough that they've just absorbed these stresses and normalized them. And the fear of the unknown, that was a lorry by the way, the fear of the unknown compared to what they actually know, even though it's toxic and harmful, the stresses are more appealing than actually reaching for anything different. Just because they've sat in it that long, they've normalized the stress. Their bodies are both breaking down. My dad's barely standing up, to be honest. I can tell that his marriage has contributed to his downfall, besides the behavioral aspects of he doesn't look after himself. But does he not look after himself because he is subject to this stress, which he fails to recognize and yet keeps participating in? If it's affecting your health, mental health does affect your physical health. That's a given. But if it's affecting your health, shouldn't you at least try and reassess whether it's worth the fight of staying there? And if he's reassessed the fight of staying there and actually stayed there whilst watching his body die, for example, then it's probably not a good assessment and you need to redo it. Some people get stuck and they can't get out, obviously, but you've got to keep trying and find means and ways to deal with this. And there's also the aspects of people trying to be nice people. Like, we're conditioned as a species, hopefully, to, if you're nice to people, you get nice back, right? If you're horrible to people, you get horrible back. That's how it works. It's transactional in a sense. But if you're nice to people, there's a large chunk of people that will be horrible to you because they will see your kindness as weakness. I don't see kindness as weakness. I see kindness as strength, because you could be faced with a horrible, horrible situation with the worst odds, and if you're still able to be nice to someone, that's a blessing in itself. It takes a lot of strength to override your own ego and anger and things like that to promote positivity and be nice to someone. It takes a hell of a lot of energy sometimes, when realistically you just want to jump the table and punch the bitch. But we've got to overdo this as part of being civil, and the human condition needs to have civility, considering we've got conscious thought. Maybe compared to animals, maybe we should show a sign of civility in order to promote a sense of community. But kindness is not a weakness. It takes a hell of a lot to override that natural instinct to attack when you've been wronged. So I don't know why they do that, but it's a stressor to sit in a situation where someone's taking the piss out of your niceness and they're exploiting it because they know you'll keep coming back, or you'll keep being nice because maybe you don't want to lose face, maybe you don't want to be seen as the bad guy for reacting to someone's bad behaviors, or maybe you're just trying to turn the other cheek. A lot of people using that sort of noble idea of just turn the other cheek, forgiveness, and keep going. You can forgive and keep going and never interact with that asshole again. You don't have to stay to take another beating. There's absolutely no reason to stay in that situation where they are causing you that level of stress, whether it's physical or mental or psychological. Like, a lot of guys might be staying in relationships where it's not a physical abuse, but it is a mental one. Girls do it too, actually, I will say. And I'm not talking about gender, I'm talking about sex, biological sex. I don't do gender. Not that I'm into the whole non-binary conversation. It just doesn't work anymore. Everybody got assigned jobs that are irrelevant at this point when it comes to having an innie or an outie. So it doesn't make sense anymore. people will sit in a situation where it might not be physically abusive, but it's mentally and verbally abusive. So you get a lot of angry arguments and gaslighting and horrible digs at each other, and they'll just say, oh, this is just the ups and downs of being married or in a relationship, and you sit there and go, that is a toxic relationship. No one, if they love you, should be digging at you all the time or angry with you all the time. It's the anger is a sign that this is not a match, this is not your person. If it's not harmonizing, then what the fuck is the purpose of this? And you've got to ask yourself and break down the relationship and see what is actually going on here. Is it a case of it's less emotional, or it was emotional at the start and now it's just a financial obligation? Or is it, is it an attachment issue? Are you staying because you can't fathom anything, like I did, that you can't fathom that there's any other reality besides this person? You really got to break that down. I mean, because you're sitting and it will make you sick if you stay. Is it worth your health to stay in a situation where you know it's toxic now? Or maybe it's not toxic, but if you know it's toxic, it's worth staying in a situation just because maybe you're too lazy to go, or maybe because you don't have the chance to stay, or maybe to go, like you're stuck in a house or with a mortgage or with kids or something like that. It's like, it just doesn't make sense to promote the stressor. It's enabling another person to abuse you because you don't want to be the bad guy, or you don't want to be, it doesn't make sense to me. I could be wrong. I do have the tism. So I'm trying to understand the conventions of human interaction. I can't even understand myself some days, so don't worry. If I dribble shit, don't worry about it. But you're enabling someone to hurt you, to stay in a situation because you're afraid of being seen as the bad guy. You're encouraging this stress to be placed on yourself. And some people use that as a sign of toughness. I'm uber masculine if I take on all this extra stressor and shit that I don't have to, but I'm going to because I'm the big tough guy, or I'm the big tough girl. It's like in Canto with that really strong woman. I assume it's a woman. I could be wrong. The sister that lifts up things. It's like her whole value was how much she can take, how much stress she can take, how much physical stress she can take. And if she can't do that, what's another bike? Oh, if she can't do that, then she has no identity or sense of value. That was the whole sub-story in that movie. And it's wrong, because then she got sick and her magic powers started disappearing. I know this is a Disney reference. This is terrible. Oh, an Indian. Nice. Nice. But, her whole value system, and then she started getting sick and her losing her powers, and then she's like, I'm no one if I don't have these. And I'm sitting there thinking, the whole story is telling you are someone regardless of whether you have these or not. If you remove yourself from that stress, then you're probably going to evolve into someone else as well. You're going to take on extra attributes, which is a good thing, because in a sense you shouldn't put all your values of yourself in one vanity to say that they're worth a particular certain level in society. I like that, but they've not bothered to invest in their personality, their sense of humor, their kindness, all these other things. They just think, if I look pretty, for example, and this is a very shallow cliche aspect, if I look pretty, then therefore I'm valuable. It doesn't work that way. You've got to have an enriched sense of identity. It's not just I look pretty, therefore I am. When that fails, when stressors start playing on your looks, for example, if you've invested in that one strand of identity, and stress does play on your looks, obviously. You get wrinkles, you get, like, my cheeks sink in when I'm stressed. I know that much because, it's just one of those things that's hormonal. Your looks will count for shit. Or what you perceive to be your looks will count for shit. And then what else have you invested in yourself? Because you haven't bothered. You'll lose your sense of self, your identity. That's more stress because you've got no sort of rock to cling to about who you are. It's insane. I'm going to start winding up though, because I'm nearly at my word. So, what did I do about stress? What do I do about stress? Like when I had my mental issue, when I got divorced, the first thing my psych said is, you got to be physical. You got to get physical. You got to get this stress out. It's a lot of anger mixed with sadness, mixed with all kinds of things. So I want you to, also I'd lost my sense of identity. So I had to go and find these things that I actually loved pre-ex-husband. and try and see if I was still interested in those and develop some interest as well. So physically, I went back to the gym. I started doing yoga and Pilates again. I needed to get that anger and aggression out and the stress. So I know it's a bit cliche where people say, see a guy in a gym and said, who hurt you? But it's true. It's getting out that extra energy, that stored energy. Because if you hold that in your body, you're just going to spiral into an angriness and internalize, and you'll snap. You've got to find a offshoot for that. Besides that, I started taking better care of myself. I started taking magnesium, obviously, one of those things. That was mainly for muscle relaxants as well, because I was finding I was cramping a lot, but I also found that the de-stressing side of, for example, I take the purple Swiss Relax and Sleep, which can be a bit expensive at times, but I always get on special anyway. I stockpile that shit because I need it. I take that, and I take one in the morning, and I take one at night, and it helps me sleep. And you're supposed to take 2 at night, but I'm like, well, so I'm semi-relaxed while I'm at work. So it's kind of a medication, but not really, because it's a natural supplement. Some people go to the extreme of, going to a doctor and saying, medicate me up. I didn't want to do that. I'm more interested in the physical side, behavioral side of de-stressing. I want to see what I can do without chemical manipulation, shall we say. Oh, I got my spot again. I love that. I didn't want to control that. So what did I do? I did medication. I changed my food. I was eating a lot of junk food. I switched that to cleaner eating. I still had treat days. I still have cheat days, because I know if I don't have at least a day of eating whatever I want, I'm going to lose my fucking mind. And I've discovered I am actually quite a sugar addict, so that's probably bad. Is it crack? No, it's powdered sugar. So I do need to have that cheat day, otherwise I get narky and stressed and things like that. So you go and find your triggers. I started doing things like this podcast, for example, to vent or just air, or try and separate out different aspects that were stressing me out. This actually just started with me talking to myself in the house, which looks odd in itself, but if you live alone, it works really well. No one's going to sit there and judge you. Not that you should be worried about people who judge you, because they're not you. But yeah, I did a whole podcast on judgment. It's okay to be judgmental. It's all right. It's a human condition where we act on survival instincts. If you didn't judge circumstances to be a particular way, sometimes you can die. So it's a survival mechanism. It's all right to judge. These people that say, I don't judge, you do judge, you just lie about it. It's like, don't buy into that. They're fibbing. They're fibbing more than the Fibonacci sequence. They're just full of it. It's a fib. Everybody judges. Even when you're looking at yourself in the mirror when you put your clothes on, you're going, is that good? I don't know. Will I wear this today? Something as basic as that is judging. You need to be more specific with these vague terms of I don't judge. But the stresses, you got to find a way to dampen down the stresses. If it means removing yourself from certain situations, then probably it's the best option. And it might be hard in the long term, because, for example, when I left my ex-husband, I left the apartment I was familiar with, that I'd built my life around. Thank you, Fleetwood Mac. I left the conventions of a relationship that I assumed were a safe convention, so I had to go and reform ideas about what a relationship should look like. I had to change myself. I had to, toughen up that little bit more, because obviously he was a person that was taking my kindness for weakness, so I had to toughen up a little bit. I'm not saying I went completely horrible. I'm saying I need to be more select with how I treat people. Because I was just willing to go with anything. I'm like, this is great. I don't have to do anything. I had a lot of naivety when I was married. These days I'm more discerning, because I know I never want to be in that situation again. So your mental state changes, your resilience changes. You get a bit tougher. Some people would turn towards bitterness. I wouldn't go bitterness, because it's counterintuitive anyway. You don't want to go there. It just stresses you out more. What else can we do? Treat yourself with niceness. You got to show yourself a certain amount of kindness as well. There is self-care involved in dealing with like bad experiences and then we try and ignore them or tough them out. It is okay to say this affected me. It's okay to say I don't want to ever see this person again. It's okay to say that. Some people say, turn around and say, oh, they did you wrong, but you should forgive them and that's fine, and you should just keep trudging on. And it's like, well, no, I don't have to forgive people. If they've done enough things to me that there's now mentally damaged me or physically damaged me, then you don't have to forgive them. There's this big push to, you have to be forgiving. It's like, no, you don't. If they've hurt you, acknowledge your authentic self and say, this hurt me. I can't just let this go. Like if anyone's, like with the Prince Andrew case, that girl who was very, very young and she got sexually assaulted by him, seemingly, we don't know, I wasn't there. I think she did, honestly, because it does feel very fucking sus, and he did pay all that money. He paid her compensation and it was all cleared away outside of court, and apparently that makes up for all this horrible stuff he did to her. And I'm sitting there thinking, that doesn't make up for me. If I got money that wouldn't make up for, being raped or something like that, or sexually assaulted, it wouldn't make up for it. So in those instances, you don't have to forgive them. If it doesn't feel right, you don't have to go. Don't put that stress on yourself where you have to turn the other cheek. It's like some circumstances happen. They are what they are. You don't have to. And you don't have to feel guilty for not forgiving someone who's done some horrible thing to you. That's another pressure we put on ourselves. It's like, why am I not forgiving this person? Because they're a horrible person. Horrible people will do horrible things and then expect forgiveness afterward. That enables them to keep going and being horrible. That's why we don't forgive them. We say, I'm not giving you another chance to do that. And it sounds horrible because you don't want to be seen as the bad guy, but at the same time, these were your choices, these were your actions, you did the actions, this is the consequence. You knew that because we've all got common sense. You don't have to forgive them. You don't. If they've been absolutely terrible, then remove yourself from that situation. Never interact with them again. You don't have to. Respect yourself in that regard. I think, honestly, to forgive someone who's done great wrong to you might be a sign of disrespect to yourself. Because it's negating the things they've done to you, the feeling that is genuine feeling. This person agreed. I'm not saying, go on a vendetta to destroy them in this reality. I'm just saying that I don't like you anymore. I'm not going to pretend that I like you by saying that I forgive you. I'm going to go this way. You're on your own. And it does maybe promote a sense of abandonment on their side of the fence. But at the same time, why were they doing those things that would harm you? It doesn't make sense. And people have more common sense than they let on. A lot of people are hiding behind the shield of forgiveness, saying, if I do these things, you've got to forgive me anyway. You knew the result. It's not a case of I accidentally did this, I accidentally shot you, I accidentally raped you, I accidentally cheated on you. It's like you didn't accidentally fucking do anything. You did it on purpose. You knew the logical consequence would be that me, and you would not really realistically be affected. I mean, would you feel guilt afterwards? I don't know. Probably, maybe, I don't know. Hopefully, because otherwise you'd be a complete sociopath. But but the thing is, it's the person's choice whether they forgive them or not. It's not a case of I've done this in order to fit in with these norms and values. You have to forgive me, otherwise you're not one of us. Part of that belonging thing, I don't agree with. It's down to the individual, I think. So long tangent on that one, but honestly, try and find ways to de-stress. Physical is, I find, best for me. Lots of people find different ways of doing things. Sometimes you just want to go to one of those rage rooms. Have you ever seen those? Oh, I'd love to go one of those rage rooms. It's basically just nearly broken stuff, like old TVs and stuff like that, and you've got a baseball bat and you just get to beat the shit out of stuff. If you can find one of those, that'd be a riot. A lot of people got a lot of pent-up anger and stress because they don't want to be the bad guy, whereas anger is seen as such a negative energy. They're afraid to show it. I mean, yes, there are negative connotations to anger. If you're violent, get done for bludgeoning someone in a bar fight, you're going to get in trouble. But not all anger is bad. There are two sides to that coin. There's negative anger where you take it out on someone who didn't really deserve it. You can have anger where you're paid to be a UFC fighter, and it's a good thing because someone pissed you off before the fight in the little photo op, and then you just hand them their ass. It's like, you shouldn't have done that. This is now a humbling experience for you and me in a sense, but you mainly. it's not all anger is bad, not all violence is bad, maybe, if we're looking at it critically, I guess. If you're looking about UFC fights, you got to find a way to deal with the stress. I'm gonna have to leave it there because I've got morning duty. I've still got to go sign in. I'm hoping you guys have a fantastic Thursday. It's 2 of my year 6 girls again. Try not to let stresses get to you. Find a physical way to let them out. I'm not saying beat the shit out of someone. I am saying maybe go for a run, do something like go to the gym, or something relaxing, takes the edge off the cortisol levels. Try and find like the foundation elements of your day that are triggering you. Maybe it's your job, maybe it's your relationship, maybe that. Minimize or remove if you have to. Try and find more value in yourself, not just in narcissistic terms where you're the center of the world. But find things that you love doing, and that will build more positive emotions in yourself, I expect. It'll relax you more. You can always turn to those things that you love doing to help de-stress. Oh, you nearly got hit by a car. Who sat on that bike? I'm gonna talk to him. Stressors. And I hope you have a fantastic Thursday, hopefully. And I'll do another podcast tomorrow morning, but then it might be a stretch of a week or so where there's none. So I'm sorry about that. Although I am probably not the best person to listen to. Anyway, and I hope you have a fantastic Thursday.